Do mass deportations of undocumented immigrants actually help American workers? The argument seems simple: remove millions, and jobs open up for US-born citizens. But the economy isn't a zero-sum game. Removing millions of workers, consumers, and taxpayers sends shockwaves through the entire system. It affects everything from grocery prices to social security. The real question isn't just about jobs, it's about the entire economic structure. In this video, we'll look at what Trump's administration is planning, the real role of undocumented immigrants, and the consequences of their removal. We'll examine jobs, wages, prices, and the cost of mass deportation. So, who really benefits when millions are removed? Let's find out. To truly understand the impact of the new deportation plan, we need to look beyond the headlines and examine the details that set this policy apart from anything we've seen before. This isn't just another shift in immigration enforcement. It's a fundamental transformation in how the United States approaches undocumented immigrants. The scale of the plan is staggering. Imagine the entire population of a major city, millions of people, suddenly at risk of being uprooted from their homes, jobs, and communities. The administration's goal is to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants currently living in the US, a number that represents families, workers, students, and neighbors. President Trump's administration has made it clear this is not a targeted operation focused only on those with criminal records. Instead, it's an unprecedented escalation, aiming to remove anyone without legal status, regardless of their background or ties to the country. The numbers alone are historic. The administration is pushing for 1 million deportations every year, tripling the previous average of about 330,000. This means a dramatic increase in enforcement actions, raids, and detentions, affecting communities across the nation. To support this massive effort, funding for immigration and customs enforcement, as well as the construction and expansion of detention facilities, has skyrocketed. New resources are being poured into vehicles, technology, and holding centers, signaling a long-term commitment to this aggressive approach. In a significant change, local police departments are now being deputized to act as immigration agents. This blurs the line between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities, creating new challenges and tensions within communities. Perhaps most strikingly, protections for sensitive locations like schools, hospitals, and places of worship have been removed. No place is considered off-limits for enforcement actions, raising fears among families and vulnerable individuals who once felt safe in these spaces. This marks a dramatic shift from previous policies that prioritized the removal of those with criminal convictions. Now, the focus is on mass deportation. Anyone without legal status is a target, regardless of their history or contributions to society. Families are being separated and detention centers are overflowing. The entire system has been re-engineered for maximum efficiency. New technologies and streamlined processes are being used to speed up arrests, detentions, and removals, leaving little room for appeals or delays. Understanding this context is crucial before we can begin to analyze the far-reaching economic and social consequences of these sweeping changes. Only by grasping the full scope of what's new and what's different can we truly appreciate the impact on individuals, families, and the nation as a whole. Who are undocumented immigrants, and what does their presence mean for the United States? The term undocumented immigrant refers to people living in the US without legal authorization. Some crossed the border without inspection, while others overstayed visas. They come from all over the world, seeking safety, opportunity, or a better life for their families. Their stories are as diverse as America itself, and their journeys are often marked by courage, sacrifice, and hope. But what role do they play in our society? Undocumented immigrants are not just a statistic. They are the backbone of many essential industries. They fill jobs that are often physically demanding and difficult to staff. From picking crops in the fields to building our homes, preparing our food, and caring for our loved ones. There are about 11 million undocumented immigrants in the US. Over 8 million are in the workforce, spread across agriculture, construction, hospitality, manufacturing, and critical services like child and elder care. In fact, undocumented workers make up significant portions of the labor force in these sectors, often taking on roles that are vital to the functioning of our economy, but are less visible to the public eye. Without their labor, many businesses would struggle to operate, and the cost of goods and services would likely rise for everyone. They're deeply embedded in communities. 6.3 million US households include at least one undocumented immigrant. These individuals are not isolated. They are neighbors, friends, and co-workers. They participate in local events, support small businesses, and contribute to the vibrancy of neighborhoods across the country. 4.4 million US-born children have at least one undocumented parent. These children are American citizens, growing up in communities where their families face uncertainty and fear of separation. The presence of undocumented parents shapes the lives of millions of children, influencing their education, well-being, and sense of security. Deporting 11 million people isn't just about workers. It's about dismantling families and disrupting millions of American children's lives. The threat of deportation creates anxiety and instability, not only for undocumented immigrants, but for their loved ones as well. Family separations can have lasting emotional and psychological effects, especially on children who may suddenly lose a parent or caregiver. Undocumented immigrants are also taxpayers, contributing nearly $580 billion annually to the US economy. Despite lacking legal status, many pay taxes through payroll deductions, and they also pay sales and property taxes, whether they own or rent their homes. They pay into systems like Social Security and Medicare, even though they may never benefit from these programs. Their contributions help fund public services, schools, and infrastructure that benefit all Americans. In many ways, they are supporting the very systems that make our communities strong. These are not people who only take from the system. They are active participants in American life, volunteering, working, and spending money in local economies. Their presence helps create jobs, sustain businesses, and foster a sense of community. They are workers, consumers, and taxpayers woven into the fabric of American society. Their stories, struggles, and contributions are part of what makes the United States unique. A nation built by immigrants, for immigrants, and with immigrants. Removing them would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the economy, but for the heart of our communities, the stability of families, and the future of millions of American children. The story of undocumented workers is, in many ways, the story of America itself. Complex, challenging, and deeply human. The idea that deporting undocumented immigrants will automatically open up jobs for American citizens is a common talking point, but it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. In fact, economic analysis consistently shows that the relationship between immigration and employment is far more complex than it first appears. When we look at the data, the story is clear. Mass deportations don't just impact immigrants, they have serious consequences for US citizens as well. Removing millions of workers from the economy doesn't just mean fewer people on payrolls. It also means millions fewer consumers shopping at local businesses, paying rent, and contributing to state and federal taxes. This sudden loss of spending power can ripple through entire communities, shrinking the economy and causing job losses that reach far beyond the immigrant population. According to leading economists, deporting 4 million immigrants could result in the loss of as many as 2.6 million jobs held by US-born workers. These aren't just numbers. They represent real people, families, and livelihoods that are put at risk by sweeping deportation policies. Many small businesses rely on a steady flow of customers and workers to keep their doors open. When immigrants are forced to leave, these businesses lose both employees and patrons, making it harder to stay afloat. The impact is especially severe in industries like agriculture, construction, hospitality, and food service, where immigrants and citizens often work side by side. In many workplaces, immigrant and citizen jobs are deeply interconnected and often complementary. Remove one group, and the entire operation can suffer. Projects stall, productivity drops, and sometimes the whole business model collapses. This isn't just theory. It's been observed in real-world case studies across the country. History offers a warning. When immigration enforcement ramps up, it doesn't just affect those targeted. It leads to job losses for US-born workers as well. Past crackdowns have left entire communities struggling with higher unemployment and shuttered businesses. For every 500,000 immigrants deported, about 44,000 US workers lose their jobs. That's not just a statistic, it's a sign of how interconnected our economy truly is. When one group is forced out, the effects are felt by everyone. Local businesses from restaurants to retail shops lose customers and revenue, leading to layoffs and closures. The loss of even a small percentage of their customer base can be devastating, especially in tight-knit communities. The Joint Economic Committee projects that deporting 8.3 million people could shrink the US GDP by a staggering 7.4%. That's a blow to the entire nation's economic health, affecting everything from public services to private investment. Even smaller-scale deportations would trigger recession-like effects, with reduced consumer spending, lower business profits, and rising unemployment. The economic pain would be felt in cities and towns across America. The evidence is overwhelming. Mass deportation doesn't create jobs for Americans. It destroys them, undermining the very communities it claims to protect. Another argument is that deportations will raise wages for American workers. In reality, increased enforcement often drives down wages and worsens working conditions for everyone. Fear of deportation makes undocumented workers vulnerable to exploitation, which drags down standards for all. When employers pay illegally low wages, it pressures others to do the same. Studies show increased enforcement leads to more wage violations for both Hispanic and non-Hispanic workers. Unions lose power, and the floor for wages drops. Instead of raises, American workers face suppressed wages and deteriorating conditions. The only winners are employers willing to break the law. Mass deportations would mean higher prices for American families. Immigrant labor keeps production costs down in agriculture, construction, and services. Remove that labor and costs rise. Businesses pass those costs to consumers. Deporting 8.3 million could raise consumer prices by up to 9%. Food prices would spike as farms lose workers, and housing costs would soar as construction slows. The cost of living would rise across the board. The promise of helping American workers rings hollow if their paychecks buy less. The impact on your wallet would be real and painful. The US already faces a labor shortage, with millions of jobs unfilled. Mass deportation would worsen this, crippling industries fundamental to our economy. Construction could lose up to a quarter of its workforce, halting projects and raising costs. Agriculture would lose hundreds of thousands of workers, leading to crop spoilage and food shortages. Hospitality, manufacturing, and childcare would also be devastated. The idea that Americans are waiting to fill these jobs is a fantasy. Deportations would create a labor vacuum, crippling entire industries. The ripple effects would be felt by everyone. The backbone of America's economy would be broken. The economic pain of mass deportation would hit hardest in states with large immigrant populations. California could lose over 1 million jobs, 6% of its workforce, devastating agriculture and construction. Texas could lose 865,000 jobs, with its economy contracting by up to 10%. Florida would lose over 500,000 jobs, crippling tourism and agriculture. These states drive the national economy. Their collapse would send shockwaves nationwide. The industries that built their growth are the most vulnerable. The policy would directly harm citizens in these states and the entire country. The fallout would not be contained. Mass deportation comes with a staggering price tag. The administration has requested $175 billion over 4 years, but true costs could be much higher. Deporting 1 million people per year could cost $88 billion annually. Removing all undocumented immigrants could cost over $300 billion. This money could fund infrastructure, education, or healthcare. Instead, it would shrink the economy. The US would also lose billions in tax revenue, $13 billion per year for Social Security, $6 billion for Medicare. Taxpayers would pay more for less, while vital programs lose funding. It's a fiscal double whammy: higher costs, lower revenues. The policy would make the country poorer. For taxpayers, it's a terrible deal. Beyond economics, the human cost is immense. 4.4 million US-born children have at least one undocumented parent. Mass deportation would traumatize and destabilize millions of families. Children face anxiety, depression, and the risk of being orphaned or placed in foster care. Fear spreads through communities, making people avoid hospitals, schools, and police. Public health and safety suffer, and the social fabric unravels. So do American workers benefit? The evidence is overwhelming. No. Mass deportations destroy jobs, lower wages, raise prices, cripple industries, and devastate families. The promise is a lie. The reality is a disaster for everyone.